shoes. Brian loved his moments of sleep. He would not give it up for any reason whatsoever. Well, he worked hard, so he deserved it, or so he thought. Working a 12-hour shift as a manager at Dexon Perfumery, he believed he was not getting paid as much as he deserved on the job. Getting to the office rather very late, he received no query from his only superior, Mr. Antonio Bozanes, who owned the perfumery. While he was quite surprised, he was also happy that his boss finally knew he worked too hard to be queried for just a few hours lateness. At this point, he began to wonder if, to compensate for other hard-working days he had put in unnoticed, his boss would give him some sort of compensation package, maybe a brand new official car, a bumper hike in his salary, or something more than his mind could fathom. What would it be? He thought to himself. Later that afternoon, he leaves the office before 12-hour shift is over, envisaging that he would not be stopped or grilled by Mr. Bozanes on where he was going. But that didn't happen. Getting into his SUV, he puts his vehicle in reverse, but holds the brake down to prevent the car from moving, believing that any moment from then, Mr. Bozanes would come out and send someone to stop him and inquire his destination. Waiting for about 20 minutes and not seeing anyone, he pulls out of the parking lot and heads for the gate with so much joy in his heart that he was finally getting some recognition for his hard work he had put in. Driving out of the gate, he zooms off for a spin around town. As much as it felt awkward that he had left the office at that time, he still made sure he tried his best to enjoy the time, as even though he wanted a little break from the office, there was still a part of him that wanted to be there as much, something he could not quite explain. He, however, did not allow himself to be deterred or dissuaded by the feeling of guilt that ran through his body about the issue. A few times on the way to his office, on his desertion trip, he makes U-turns to go back to the office. But after a few meters back, he steered the car back in the direction of his house and spared like his life depended on it. It would later become the last time he would experience life as himself. A few hours later, he had driven to his garage, got out of his clothes, showered, and was about to get into bed to rest when he is interrupted by his ringing phone. He ignores it for a while, hoping that whoever it was would realize he was not in the mood to take calls and quit calling. But he suddenly remembered that he had put off his phone before getting into the shower for his bath. He strolls over to the table where his phone laid to ascertain the reason for the anomaly. But he is astonished and relaxed at the same time to find out that it was just his alarm clock. reminding him of something he was meant to do. Peradventure, he was to be in the office at that moment. But he was not. So he quickly switched off the alarm and got cozy in his bed with the help of a snugly white wool blanket and a powerful split AC system, which made the room feel as cold as the inside of an industrial freezer or in that access. Within a few minutes, he was out cold like a log, in sleep mode, immune to disturbances and obstructions of any kind. But there will be bigger problems for him when he finally wakes up from his sleep. He conquered so many territories of sleep that he didn't have the chance to conquer before, hitting climax and getting in again, almost like he never wanted the experience to end. A few hours later, he jerks up out of his sleep, unknown to him that he had slept for about 12 hours straight into the next morning. He felt different in his body, as though it was not his body he was in. Looking at the clock in his bedroom, he discovered it is 8 a.m. in the morning. He imagined he was only late by an hour, but that thought is discredited when he hears his doorbell ring. Brian wonders who would come to disturb his peace so early in the morning. Opening the door lazily, he's surprised to see a bunch of cameras in his face alongside a lady who claims to be his wardrobe assistant, Cherry Daniels, and a man, his wardrobe assistant, Cherry Daniels, and a man who claims to be his manager, Stephen Chestnut, alongside a couple others who were introduced by the wardrobe assistant as domestic staff who would be in charge of everything from his physical hygiene to the biggest contracts. She had a certain fatigue in her voice, like she was unhappy that she had to remind him who he was, something she believed he was supposed to know already, but he was not at all. He was not all Alison Westnut, just a random Brian Brantley in Westnut's body, confused and unaware of what's going on. Getting dressed for the day, however forcefully, he knew he was to brace himself for the bizarre stuff that was waiting ahead. He imagined how much fun they would be having in the office, seeing him in the office, but with the personality of Alison Westnut, the table tennis pro. Brian smiled too. Brian smiled so hard when he arrived at tennis arena, acknowledging cheers and signing autographs for virtually everyone that approached him. He could as well love the life, or so he thought, but he would break in a few days and beg to be given his old life back. Taking himself up to the tennis court, he makes ready to play, believing that that was all it was, a time to enjoy, and that such people got paid way too much to just come and play. He felt he would enjoy the experience and relish it for as long as it would last. That was the life he believed he was built for, fat checks, oddlies and all. He always believed that the sports people had life way too easy for them, and he was to by all means capitalize on the opportunity to relish that happy life. 4 days into the switch, Brian was already losing his mind from all the over 50 sessions of training exercises, 30 sessions of press conferences, 10 sessions of agreement signings he had been put through. He had not slept for more than 10 minutes each through these 4 days. Part of him wanted it to be over, and yet another part of him relished the adrenaline it brought him being a star. His eyes, which had turned green with envy before this episode, turned one so pale and red with stress that he began to wonder why he had envied in the first place this set of people. He wondered when the whole episode would come to an end. His wardrobe assistant, Cherry Daniels, notices the glum in his face and asks to know what's wrong with him. "Do you believe in spells?" Brian asked. "What? No. What are you for?" Cherry Daniels responded. "I'm telling you the truth. A spell was cast on me," Brian remarked. "I'm not Alison Westnott. I mean, it feels good to be in his body, but I am not him. I am Brian Brentley." "Oh yes, I am, and I am not Cherry Daniels." Cherry Daniels teased. "Come on, tell me something else." "I'm serious. You have to believe me," Brian pleaded. "Look, Westnott," she began. "There are thousands of people waiting out there for your appearance. Please don't blow it." That said, she left the room to allow him decide what he wanted to do. In less than 2 minutes, his manager comes in and demands that he gets to the tennis court immediately, unwilling to hear whatever story he was willing to cook up. As long as it had nothing to do with his failing health, he was not ready to hear it. Meanwhile, back at the office, the real Westnott in Brian's body had already lost his head in the confusion of what to do in the office there. His favorite time was the break time, when he would be afforded undivided attention in sports. Outside that moment in time, he was a square peg in a round hole. Nothing made sense to him. He had been issued the 5th warning on the 3rd day already, which Antonio Bozanet said he had only given so much leverage as to allow the warning get to 5, because it was his wedding anniversary week and he did not want to sack anyone. Finally, it was time for Westnott's tennis game to begin. He got into position with his racket firm in his hand, the way he knew how to hold it. His opponent, Lucius Griffin, took his service, holding the ball in the air, smashed it in the table, and it ricocheted off the table and into Westnott's face, sending him into a concussion, which then drifts into a 3-day coma. At the office, after the real Westnott in Brian's body saw what happened, 4 days after the incident, when he was less busy in the office, he decides to storm the hospital in order to see who the impostor was and why all of it was happening. He sat beside Brian, fake Westnott, waiting for him to wake up and hoping that he would explain to him what was going on. Within a few minutes, fake Brian blacked out and the switch happened. Waking up simultaneously, Brian and Westnott stare at each other confused as to what had just transpired. Weak in his shoes. Brian loved